Okay, hello everybody. So hopefully you should be able to hear me and we shouldn't have an echo and we should be able to get started. So I'm Dave Shrier. I'm a co-convener of the Oxford Fintech Program and its sister program, the Oxford Blockchain Strategy Program. Thank you for taking time to join us. So this is a 10-week online program, Oxford Fintech. Through it, we give you an exposure to a variety of transformational technologies and tools and businesses that are reshaping financial services globally. We take you around the world and talk to entrepreneurs, investors, and corporate executives who are making the new fintech ecosystem. It will, as I mentioned, be a 10-week program. You're going to put a fair amount of time into this. It's typically 10 to 15 hours a week of effort. I tell people that you get out of it what you put into it. So it is certainly possible to do a lot less and still get some benefit from the program. But it's you're going to take the time, you're going to spend the money. I'd encourage you to put more into it, and you will find that you get more out of it, both in terms of deeper exploration of the material that we provide you, interactions with your fellow students in the online forums and in person at meetups around the world, and in terms of the exploration of your own. Whoops, there's something. Sorry, I just got a note from the team saying we've got a box in front of the camera. Sorry, we can adjust the camera. We have a. Well, I won't take you through the improvisation for our camera setup for this webinar, but we've had a fun morning. Okay, so yes, as I was saying, whoops, that's the problem with this approach. Bear with me, guys. Sorry. Okay, there we are. I promise you, by the way, that the actual program itself had a professional camera crew. They had things like tripods and lavalier mics and other things rather than this webinar setup we've got going this morning. So the program has a tremendous amount of content and material, and the more that you interact with it, the more you'll get out of it. There are different payment options, so you can do a full pay. There are various discounts. You also have multi-pay options if you can't afford to pay all at once. And the way that we've designed this program is we give you a little bit of an introduction where you start to understand what some of the key trends are and a broader framework for how to think about the financial system and how it's being changed. And then you get into a team. We form you in groups of, let's say, 4 or 5 people, and you pick a particular topic to pursue in depth over the full program. And that's your capstone project. You can either develop a business plan and the PowerPoint deck, the model, and have something you can walk away from that you could go and pitch people with. And I have had past students get venture capital funding, get corporate funding from their own corporate boards, join accelerators. There's been a lot of success that people have had by using this model of a structured pedagogical approach where we give you frameworks and worked examples of interviews with over 5 dozen entrepreneurs around the world who are building new businesses, as well as your capstone, where you pursue an idea in depth, and we give you the tools to figure out how to do that. Alternatively, you can elect to do a strategy roadmap. This is more useful if, say, you're a corporate executive inside a large bank or insurance company, and you're trying to think about the implications of fintech for your organization and what your organization should do about it. Or you have entrepreneurial leanings. You're someone who would like to start a business, but you haven't figured out exactly what your idea is or even what area of fintech you want to pursue. And so the strategy roadmap is a great way to assess the landscape and then pick something that you then could pursue as a fintech business. When you successfully complete the program, you get a certificate of attendance. So from Oxford, from the University of Oxford, Said Business School. So you do get a certificate when you successfully complete the program. Successfully complete the program means that you have a point score of at least 50% or better. We grade this program on the European grading system. So those of you who are used to the American system probably you're going to say, if it's less than a 90%, then something's wrong, and it's not working. I'm not learning anything. That's because the American system has had a lot of grade inflation. I've been teaching in the American business schools and technology schools for 17 years, and um, there's just an expectation. Of course, you can get an A if you just show up. We don't give a transcript in the Oxford blockchain or fintech programs. We don't give letter grades that you sort of take away with you. If you successfully complete it, you get a certificate. You will have a numerical score on each assignment and on your capstone. That's intended to help you figure out basically where you need to improve, where you need to focus and invest more time into, and where you've sort of got the material covered. So it is useful for your own diagnostics. It's not certainly something that we, provide any formal representations around, but it is something that we think is helpful. Okay. Now let me get into the questions. There are a bunch of questions that have been submitted. If you put question to the comments, they will get added sort of the end of the list. Okay, collaborative group work. Could you provide an example of how the process works in practice? Include details of what collaboration tools will be used. All right, so you'll be put in a group. We encourage people to use live video chat as much as possible to coordinate their group. That's because you get rich social signals from each other, and we found that people interact better in teams if they have that trust that is built from a live video interaction. So Skype or Google Hangouts or something like that. Now, that said, although that's something we recommend, not everyone does that, and there are people certainly who have completed the program using WhatsApp or shared Google Docs or other kinds of collaboration tools. But the primary collaboration tools for your group work rely on we recommending that you use live video chat. In addition, and that's just for your program, is asynchronous. You can consume the videos from the instructors, at any point during the week, really modules that each content is released and you're assessed around. So you can see the videos, you can read the material at any point during the week. But when you put into get groups, you schedule with your group a mutually convenient time. We do try and put you into groups that are around a geographic sort of time zone. So north-south bands across the globe. And that way it's easier to coordinate schedules. But if you want, you can ask to be put into a different band. So I had one student who was in New Zealand, and he asked to be put in a group with people from New York and London because he wanted to hear about what was going on in fintech and other places around the world. Okay, we also have online forums, right? So in addition to the group work, we have these environments in which you can interact with other students and hear what they have to say and get answers from both instructors and the tutors that help guide you through your journey. Next question. Would it be helpful having data on fintech companies? Do you have any data to share, or you provide access to a specific database of fintech companies? I'm not sure what you mean exactly by this question. We do provide you some information around fintech companies. We are not trying to duplicate the work of a venture capital screening tool like CB Insights. Instead, we would direct you to look at their website as an example, or look on AngelList. There are a bunch of companies listed there, or look on LinkedIn. So I'm not sure what you mean by the question. We certainly don't curate a proprietary database. That's not the point of the program. And frankly, if we did, it would be out of date almost immediately because people are constantly launching new fintech businesses. Instead, what we try to do is provide you some examples of some successful fintech entrepreneurs, whether that be Nick Ogden, who founded a business that led to the WorldPay, or and now is running a company called Bank, or Suresh from Crayon Data. We have people from all over the world who have their successful entrepreneurial journeys. They share with you in terms of the different kinds of fintech businesses that they're building. We also have investors and corporate executives who in turn are supporting the growth and development of the fintech ecosystem, as well as corporate innovators, people like Veronica Lang, who leads technology innovation in the CTO's office at UBS and other places. So you can hear a variety of perspectives. Um, so that's what we do, but we're not trying to do an exhaustive catalog of all the fintech companies in the world. That's not our role. Will all lectures be recorded and available for access at a later date? I travel frequently and worried about missing a lecture in the air. Well, as I just said earlier, all the lectures are pre-recorded, and so for sure you can sort of deal with it. As long as you can get to a computer sometime over the course of a week, then you're okay. If you go off the grid for more than a week, then you got a problem. But yes, definitely if you have flights for business or such. Most of our students are working professionals. The average student has more than 15 years of professional experience. So we got a lot of people who are doing this on the side of a day job and have a program to accommodate that. When will the next online course start? I'd be interested to join in the fall. Well, the next one starts next week in February, and then there's one in March. And we anticipate a few more runs over the course of 2018 to be a fall cohort that you could join. Are there any face-to-face meetups organized for UK-based students? Absolutely. There's a very vibrant and dynamic meetup group in London. If you live like in Glasgow or something, you can try starting the Scottish fintech meetup group. I'm not sure if we have one up there, but I do know that there's a group in London that's quite active. And there's a robust alumni community. So in addition to your own group, you will join a cohort of innovators in fintech from prior runs of the program and have a chance to network with them as well. So there's a really nice alumni network, and these people stay in touch with each other for years and continue to interact both on LinkedIn and in person. How will the online campus work, and what are the requirements for completing the program? Well, the online campus has videos, it has readings, it has links, it has discussion forums. The several hundred people in the program will be divided up into cohorts of 100. Each cohort will have a tutor. Then within that, every single participant in the program gets assigned a success manager who helps you day by day to make sure that you're keeping up with the assignments. And then, as I said earlier, you get broken into small groups to work on your group project, and that's usually like 3 to 5 people. You interact with each other both in the campus and in other collaboration tools. We release modules weekly, so every week you get a module which has videos, written material, and assignments. These assignments include quizzes, they include short essays, and then for the big chunk of the program, there's a capstone project that includes PowerPoint deck, financial models, and an explainer video. So you have to sort of submit all of those in pieces over the several weeks, and then you have kind of final submissions towards the end. Okay, I'm a banker with transaction banking, trade finance, and cash management background. How can this course help me and be useful in my line of business? Well, I know for a fact that all 3 of those areas of transaction banking, trade finance, and cash management are being disrupted by new technologies like blockchain, artificial intelligence, even quantum computing, which is on its way. And we cover all of those in the program. So we help you understand what are these technology disruptions that are going to change financial services in all of its different areas, and what can you do about it? And so in addition to kind of the overview of prediction markets and new kinds of currencies and new kinds of market structures, we also provide you with some frameworks to be able to develop either a business plan or a strategy roadmap for how you can respond to this disruption and change and take advantage of it. So absolutely, it will be useful. Once companies leverage new technologies like blockchain, bots, AI, etc., and obtain massive operational savings, will the market landscape change? Will we see a reduction of corporate debt issued, less IPOs, and less capital increases? So the short answer is what we are seeing currently is increased access rather than decreased access to capital. IPOs in particular, initial public offerings, may possibly even go down because access to private capital will go up. So we are seeing equity crowdfunding and tokenized funding, also known as initial coin offerings, which I personally believe is a security. So others will argue with me, but I think ICOs should be regulated like securities. But all these things will actually increase access to capital rather than decrease it. So the exciting thing about the ICO wave, for example, is that you're seeing businesses get funded with significant amounts of money in markets that you normally would never see getting funded. You know, a business headquartered outside of Silicon Valley getting a lot of money for its startup business plan. So likewise, I think you'll see bigger organizations. Telegram is a great example. They want to do a $1.2 billion ICO. And you know, they could go public. Normally, you'd see figures like that in a public offering, or even in you know, a private capital placement with a sovereign fund. You know, the folks at, whether it's at ADIC, you know, the Abu Dhabi Investment Corporation, or Temasek in Singapore, or wherever, you have lots of folks who, sorry, Malaysia, you have lots of folks who are raising big amounts of money in these kinds of offerings, but instead you've got someone who's saying, I'm going to go out to masses of crypto holders and raise $1.2 billion that way. So I do think the landscape will change, not only from these cost savings, but from new forms of syndication and new sources of capital. I don't think it's going to be a reduction. I do think we're going to see difference, and that's exciting. That means opportunity. Okay. Does this program seek to address compliance and financial crimes risk in the fintech space? We definitely do talk about RegTech and regulation technology, and compliance technology is part of that. And we touch on some aspects of AML KYC, anti-money laundering, and know your client. So if that's what you mean, does this program seek to address them? Absolutely, we address them. Is this program exclusively focused on compliance? By no means. We also touch on policy and regulation. This is a book we wrote actually for an earlier version of the class. I recognize YouTube flips the text, but what it says is Frontiers of Financial Technology. So if you go to you know, Amazon, or you go to visionaryfuture.com, there's a 60-page chapter in there about regulation in fintech, and I think you'll find it interesting as well. How would you define fintech for the purposes of this program? It is often used interchangeably with blockchain, cryptocurrencies, etc. We define fintech broadly. It is not only blockchain or cryptocurrencies, but is also things like artificial intelligence and advanced analytics and many other areas. In our view, you know, a fintech company is a company that primarily derives that's in financial services, but derives the majority of its revenue through a technology-enabled platform. So to give you an example, you know, and I used this example earlier, UBS is not a fintech. UBS uses a lot of technology, but its primary business model is derived from these face-to-face interactions with, you know, a lot of, you know, whether it's investment bankers working with people, or asset managers working with clients. It's a technology-enabled company, but it's not a fintech. In contrast, a company like Lending Club is or Starling Bank is a fintech. A company like Monzo is a fintech. So Monzo offers banking services for sure, but it's entirely digital platform, and technology is in the DNA of the organization. All right. Here are some more questions that have come in. What prerequisite knowledge of finance and economics is required before starting this program? Are there any prerequisites before commencing this program? There are no prerequisites. It's helpful if you know something about something, and you'll get more out of it the more sophisticated you are. So if you look at my LinkedIn profile, if you follow me on LinkedIn, I have a series of short articles that I've posted over the last, you know, year plus, and you'll get a lot of benefit if you look at those. They're little, like 300 to 500 word articles about different topics in fintech and analytics. So that would be useful for you. to do a little supplemental reading, just so you're prepared when you walk into the program. Also recommend, by the way, you sign up for our newsletter, because we'll email these directly to you every couple of weeks as I come out with new ones. So let me suggest that you sign up for our email newsletter. It's free. Okay, will the focus be on corporate to corporate payment systems, or will the primary focus be on the faster moving consumer to business payments or consumer to consumer payments? The answer is all of the above or none of the above. I mean, we're not exclusively focusing on corporate payments or consumer payments. We're giving you an introduction to fintech that covers many things. Can you recommend any books or articles to read in advance or in parallel? Well, so I suggested Frontiers of Financial Technology. If you go to visionaryfuture.com, you'll see some other books that we've written as well. They're not fintech specific, but they touch on fintech related topics like digital identity and data management and cybersecurity. But the Frontiers of Financial Technology book is intended to be a survey that gives you a quick overview of a number of key areas. The one thing that it does not cover, we wrote it a couple of years ago, is crowdfunding, crowd capital. We are working on a new white paper on crowd capital, and we'll be able to send it out to everybody in the program when it's ready, which should be in early April. So if you sign up for the program that starts February 28th, you'll get the crowd capital white paper before other people do. We'll incorporate it into a new edition of the book eventually. But there's other stuff that's been written. We just, there were only so many things we covered in the first edition. But it's a good way to get started. So between my blog and the book, that's a nice way to get started. Beyond that, there's been a lot of, the reason we wrote the book is we weren't happy with any of the other things we saw out there. We thought there wasn't a great textbook for the class. So we created one. There is an interesting book that's not specifically about fintech, but has profound implications for fintech, and it's called Social Physics. It's by my co-instructor, Alex Pentland. He's a professor both with MIT and also a visiting professor with Oxford at the Said Business School. And social physics is essentially about transformational big data that's changing the way we can manage societies. And Professor Pentland is a fascinating guy. He advises the UN Secretary General and the board of AT&T and he advises the Tencent Research Institute on how to use big data. So he's someone I think you'll learn a lot from. Okay, can you elaborate on the depth of your coverage of blockchain? I'm not sure how to answer that question. We definitely cover blockchain. So my fintech book, for example, 3 chapters are on blockchain out of a total of, let's see, how many chapters do we have here? A total of 8 chapters. So, it's probably proportionate to where it's covered in the program. It's impossible to talk about fintech without talking about blockchain, because it is something that is being used widely in the industry, but we by no means exclusively focus on blockchain. You can build a very interesting fintech that's entirely about AI and analytics. So in fact, the fintech that I run, Distilled Analytics, is not a blockchain company. We do advanced analytics using artificial intelligence. So there are lots of different kinds of fintech, and we talk about lots of different kinds of fintech in the program. It is not restricted to blockchain. But if you're interested in blockchain, we definitely cover it. The other thing to bear in mind is that this program you customize to your own needs. So we have the frameworks and strategies, and we talk about kind of the financial system and how it works. But if you decide you want to work on a blockchain-related business plan, we provide you the tools to support that. And that's how you would get more depth on blockchain, if that's what you're looking for. If you wanted to do something on quantum computing, then you could do a project on quantum computing and not talk about blockchain. So it's entirely up to you. This is where you decide on how to curate the optimal learning experience for yourself. All right. How do you choose between Oxford Blockchain and Oxford Fintech? Well, who says you have to choose? You could take both. I think if you took both of them at the same time, it would be challenging because it'd be a lot of work. It would be a full-time job. But you could do that. The Oxford Blockchain Strategy Program goes into a lot more depth on blockchain specifically and on how to develop a strategy for dealing with disruptive change through technology. The Oxford Fintech Program has a goal of guiding you towards launching a new enterprise, whether it's a business or a corporate venture within a big corporate organization. And so the outcome that we'd expect is a little different. Um, uh, fintech is 10 weeks, blockchain is 6 weeks. Some people struggle to commit 10 weeks to a program, which is why we made a shorter one for fintech. But we felt that the depth was important for shorter one for blockchain. But we felt that the depth was important for fintech, that we cover all of the elements of creating a successful business plan to be able to launch a new enterprise. Okay, can you elaborate on your depth of coverage? I just talked about that. What are some good to know fields before starting the course? Well, I mean, it's helpful that you have some understanding of financial services. We deliver the program with the assumption that you don't know any one topic in particular, but knowing something about financial services doesn't hurt, or something about technology. FinTech is both fin and tech. So you could come in as a technologist who's trying to understand financial services to get better, and we give you tools to do that and knowledge. You could be someone who's a financial services executive who wants to understand technology's impacts better, and we support that as well. How is RegTech going to be covered in the program? Well, we have a module on RegTech specifically, and the former head of compliance for government affairs, for Goldman Sachs Europe leads that module, Lisa Rabi. She's also on the advisory board for the Oxford School of Law and Finance, and an expert and advisor to multiple governments and companies on RegTech related issues. So we have very good sort of subject matter expertise around RegTech. So it's one of the 10 modules specifically focused on RegTech. We also cover PropTech, property technology. That's Andrew Baum, another Oxford faculty member. And we talk about market disruption. We talk about money and currency disruption. We talk about infrastructure, middle and back office, and the financial system disruption. So the outline in the course information package gives you the specifics on each of the modules that we will cover in this program. So if you haven't downloaded the course info pack, I do encourage you to do so. What percentage of the program will be dedicated to online lending? Not a lot. I mean, we will talk about online lending. We'll also talk about online lending in the context of building successful financial businesses. So this is not a class in online lending, but we certainly, touch on the subject. So it's part of what Peter Tufano, one of our professors and instructors, and also the dean of Oxford Said Business School, was so excited about Oxford Fintech that he personally decided to teach one of the modules. So he will provide a framework for decomposing the financial system and understanding fintech in the context of how the financial system works. He would call lending moving money from tomorrow to today, as opposed to savings or investing, which is moving money from today to tomorrow. All right. How's the program going to explore ownership concepts? I'm not sure what you mean by that question. If you mean, will we tell you what percentage of your startup you should own versus investors? We don't really go into a lot of depth on that. If you mean using blockchain for property ownership provenance, we do talk about that. So I'm not sure what you mean by that question. Does the program cover the topic of what are the efforts to start a fintech? Yes, it does. The program talks about how to... all right, so someone just said that the link to the newsletter is not working. So I'm going to ask the Get Smarter team to please post the correct link for the newsletter so that they can sign up. I think it's, by the way, let me double check this, but I think if you go to, let me see what happens. I think if you go to oxfordfintech.com, .org, oxfordfintech.org, and you look at the very bottom of the page, you'll see at the very, very, very bottom of the page where it's of oxfordfintech.org, it says newsletter sign up, first name, email address, and subscribe. The big pink subscribe button. So that's where you can sign up for the newsletter. Okay, let me go back to the questions. All right. Are we going to learn about coding? No, you are not. We do not. This is not a programming class. There are many excellent programming classes online. I happen to think well of Code Academy, but there are many that do a good job. What we try to do is provide you with business context around launching a financial enterprise, whether that's a new fintech freestanding company or a new financial initiative, fintech initiative within an existing company. It's a corporate innovation effort within a large enterprise. As I work internationally with my clients, is there flexibility to work during GMT daytime versus evenings or weekends? Most of my evenings are fully booked. Will this hinder my participation? No, it will not. You can work in this class at any time of day. What I'd suggest is that you request to be put in a group with someone who is in either Asia, like Singapore or Hong Kong, or in North America, if you want a time shift, because those groups will tend to be more time shifted than a UK group. You'll see a lot of people are available evenings and weekends. So it's up to you, but I'd suggest you just make sure that you talk to your success manager and get put in a group with people who have similar sort of time of day as you. Because we try and group people by time zones. So we try and put people in groups for their projects so that they are sort of synced up with each other. The content of the program, my lectures, the guest experts, the quizzes, all that can be done at any point, during the week. So every week we'll release a new module. You can do your work at your own pace anytime during the week. But for your group activities, where you're put into a group of 3 to 5 people, you can ask to be assigned to a group that sort of fits your schedule. And we should have probably 500 people taking the program this go round. So you'll have a lot of options in terms of these little groups of 3 to 5. We should have 100 groups, right? Or more. Okay, let's see. Some other questions. From your experiences and network, what are your views on B2B fintech trends specifically that are worth paying attention to? Or which communities are worth engaging with to seek opportunities worth solving the B2B fintech arena? Gosh, that's a hard question to answer because there are a couple of different answers. So all of the big banks are trying to figure out how to deal with fintech. Big banks, big insurance companies, big non-bank finance companies. They're all trying to figure out what to do with fintech, and they all need help. And so there's lots of opportunity in areas like supply chain management and trade finance and you name it. It's too many to list here. I also happen to think that there's opportunity around small business fintech, right? And that's another sort of play on this idea that small and medium-sized enterprises hold 95% of them are insufficiently served by the financial services industry. So there's huge potential for value creation if you can serve their needs. Okay. The role of digital identity and adhering to privacy regulations is becoming a big factor for fintech. Can we coexist and do business securely in an ecosystem where there isn't full adoption and implementation of digital identity across all players? What more needs to be done to get digital identity to mass adoption? Regulation and stronger government participation? So this is a tough one. I spend a lot of time in the area of digital identity, by the way. And in fact, the purple book here that sits on my shelf, Trust Data, is about a new digital identity and data management system. Right? So what I'll say is as follows. Government action certainly can sort of force people to adopt something. So if you look in India at the Aadhaar project, people are being forced to adopt the digital identity. There can be problems with that. So the entire Aadhaar database was improperly secured and it was accessed. So all 1.2 billion identities were accessed a couple of months ago. So so I'm not sure if I want to lean on the idea of having governments force people to do it. I'd much rather offer something that's useful to people and have demand pull it through. But that's just a personal bias. Certainly government action can drive more meaningful adoption. But take a look at smartphones. Smartphone penetration is getting to be near total. And that's not mandated by the government. That's just because it's this incredibly useful thing that's gotten less and less and less expensive. So now even the poorest countries on the planet can see significant Android phone penetration. So, okay, moving on. The blockchain is set to enable business networks for the future and is a key technology enabler of immutable, trusted transactions with untrusted parties. Okay? How can supply chains be radically pivoted to participate sooner rather than later? What are you seeing as the barriers of entry at this stage? The main barrier to entry is culture. There are tremendous cost savings and time efficiencies that blockchain can drive in supply chain management, and more broadly, not just blockchain, but other technologies as well. But it takes force of will and it takes market dynamic. So I will give an analogous example. So this is not a one-to-one example, but this is an analogy of how supply chain can be radically pivoted. So Tommy Meredith is a friend of mine. He was the CFO of Dell, who when he took over, this was back the first time that they were building the business. So Michael Dell had started Dell Computer in his dorm room and started growing it and growing it and growing it. He was growing it to be a significant, primarily mail order business, so e-commerce business. And Tommy was brought in to help sort of professionalize. Someone's having a hard time finding the book. So if you mean my book, go to visionaryfuture.com, visionaryfuture.com, and all three of my books are posted there. If you mean Sandy Pentland's book, it's called Social Physics, and it's Alex Pentland, Pentland. But the Frontiers of Financial Technology book, the blue book that I held up here before, you can find this on visionaryfuture.com, and then that'll link you through to the book page, and you can download it on Amazon. Okay, so sorry, getting back to supply chain. So Tommy Meredith I was just responding to a question that showed up on the screen there. Tommy Meredith came in and he looked at Dell, and Dell at the time had 2,000 suppliers. Its supply chain was a shambles. There were just way too many people. And so he got all his annual supplier meeting, he got them all in a room, and he said, okay, it takes too long for us to get what we need. We run out of stuff, and our supply chain is too complicated. So this time next year, this was in about, I think, 98 or 99. This time next year, there are going to be 200 of you, and you're all going to be making more money, and we're going to be working better together. And he did it. He radically reshaped Dell's supply chain, but that's because he had authority, and he provided leadership, and he had a vision, and he executed on that vision. So he had to change the culture of the suppliers, but the economic incentive was very big. Sorry, there's one question that just came up of saying, I don't have 15 years of experience. Can I still take the program? The answer is absolutely. The average is 15 plus years of experience, but it's like a bell curve. So we have people with a lot less. They have 0 to. I had one time I ran the fintech program. I had a 19-year-old who had a fantastic time and was the star of his group, and I had a 65-year-old. So there's a very wide bell curve of people and experience levels, but sort of the broad middle is someone with about 15 years of experience. But certainly you will be able to get a lot out of it if you have less experience. Okay, so that's my take on supply chains. Is just that culture will be the main barrier to change, and vision and leadership can help solve that problem. But the technology is here now; it's capable now, and the cost savings are very real. Okay. All right, this is an interesting one. I think are there a few more coming through, Ian, or should I keep going in order here? Okay, well, I'll keep going. I think we just have a couple more questions, but sir, if you have other questions, feel free to pose them in the chat. Um, oh, here's one. Will the capstone and group projects take place during specific weeks of the 10-week period or run throughout the 10 weeks? The answer is yes. So the capstone project is due, I think it's in week 9 or week 8, at the very, very end. And we scaffold you through week by week. Here's the section you're working on this week. Here's the section you're working on this week. Here's the section you're working on this week. But you start that process in like week 3. So most of this, you're getting both course content. Here's what's going on in these different areas of fintech, and also backboning that, working on your capstone in parallel. So the first time we offered the program, first we gave you the content up front, and then we had you work on the capstone in the back 6 weeks, let's say. And people complained that there wasn't enough fintech content, that it was, it turned into a business planning class. So this time around, we've sort of continued to offer this fintech industry perspectives, frameworks, and content throughout the 10 weeks while you are building your capstone in parallel. And then we had people complain that there was too much work. So I take that as a lesson of you can't please all the people all the time. But we have worked very hard to balance both your focus on your specific capstone and giving you breadth and depth across over 60 guest experts in every sector of financial services. And so it is rigorous. It is an Oxford program. The dean of Said had said to me, the best learning occurs when you put students in the zone of discomfort, which means, we make it hard enough that you actually learn something meaningful from it and you take away true value from participating. But we don't put so much on it that you end up, not being able to finish or getting disillusioned or whatever. So we walk that line, but prepare yourself. This is a rigorous program because A, it's being offered by Oxford, one of the oldest universities on the planet and a source of knowledge and excellence for centuries. And B, we found that we want to give you tremendous value. You're all very busy. You all have other things you can do with your time. And we want to make sure that you're getting your money's worth if you take this program. And we think you will. And student completion rates and student satisfaction rates tend to reflect that point of view that people really like this and it really does deliver substantive value. Okay, so I guess I'll wrap up with this last question unless people have others. You specialize in unleashing organizational growth in many companies from various industries, including GE, Walt Disney, Ernst & Young, and Starwood Hotels and Resorts. Clearly somebody who read my bio. How do you view the potential of fintech, and how would you relate your past contribution to each global industry? How would you relate your past contribution to each global company in the other industries? Well, I view the potential of fintech as tremendous. I think that there is a lot of potential here. Just on cost savings alone, it could be $100 billion US a year. There's a lot of potential, value. The upside potential is even greater. So $100 billion a year is just the cost savings that could be, kind of derived from this kind of program of instituting fintech into a business. But in terms of creating new businesses and opening up new markets, the numbers are even bigger. So if you think about it, 3.5 billion people in the world are either unbanked or underbanked. So those are all people who benefit from better financial services. 245 million small and medium-sized enterprises are underbanked or unbanked. So just the lending gap alone globally is over $10 trillion. And there's more if we think about other ways to grow the market. That was just, those two things were just in the areas of sort of banking services. We haven't talked about asset management. We haven't talked about insurance. We haven't talked about real estate. the many, many other areas of financial services. So real estate is going to be transformed by fintech. Real estate is, over $200 trillion US of nominal property value, and all that's going to change with fintech. So I think that there's a lot of potential, and it's hard to quantify other than say really, really big. How do my past experiences contribute to this? Well, I mean, let's not forget I've also done fintech. So one of my past experiences was when I was brought in by Dun & Bradstreet, which is a company that has credit information on large and small businesses. And at the time, the business had 4 business lines of negative organic growth. And my job was to figure out a 5th business line. So that was an interesting experience. That was definitely a fintech. We figured out a way to build a new business from inside Dun & Bradstreet with minimal startup investment that generated 20 million of EBITDA by its 3rd year. So that was an example of corporate innovation leading to the creation of a new fintech capability for an established data services company. I'm not going to sort of go into how each of my experiences informs what I do, but suffice it to say, I've worked on billions of dollars of these innovation initiatives and also done a bunch of startups. And I've tried to bring the best of what I've learned from those experiences, both the successes and the failures, to bear on kind of what we're talking about in the fintech program. And I'm hopeful that the knowledge and the frameworks derived from those experiences will be useful to you as you seek to shape either your own corporate innovation or your own startup company. Let's see what else. There was a question that I saw come up that got deleted. Okay, well, look, if we don't have any more questions, I'm going to ring off shortly. I do just understand. Is the program business case study driven or learning about forecasting? The answer is yes. So we don't use the case method. This is not Harvard Business School, but we do use worked examples and interviews with executives to give you a sense of sort of here's how they have approached a particular area or problem. And we also give you tools for thinking about market forecasting and references to look at in terms of market forecasts. And you can develop your own projection or forecast of what you're going to go explore. So both, I think, was the answer to that question that just came up in the chat. All right. Well, look, I hope you all join us again. It's oxfordfintech.org. There's lots of information about the program. There's a course info pack you can download. And I do encourage you to sign up for the newsletter, which is on the very bottom of that page in the bottom right. If you go all the way down, you can sign up to the newsletter, and then we'll send you, I write a 300, 500 word column at the very, every couple of weeks. And so that's something that I'd be happy to have you as a member of our audience. All right. Thanks, everybody. This has been fun. And I hope to see you next week or in a future iteration of Oxford FinTech.